You testified in your written testimony that you've uncovered child recycling rings, I'm quoting you now, whereby innocent children are being used multiple times to help different adults gain illegal entry and release. Can you tell us more about that? Because it seems to me that the exploitation of children by cartels, human smugglers, on the scale that you're describing is absolutely unbelievable. And quite frankly, the refusal of this Congress to act, to do something about this humanitarian crisis, is absolutely unbelievable and absolutely indefensible. So why don't you tell us more about this crisis?
So in May, we had 88,000 families cross the border. That's incentivized by the fact that they can't be held for the full court proceeding. We know that for a fact. It's not a great leap of imagination to think that people might try to exploit that fact and bring a child who's not their own, maybe even the same child more than once. You referenced the cases of child recycling. We're up to 3 significant cases now. The Charleston case was referenced, but we also have one in Chicago where we had a single group, 8 children were used to bring in 36 adults.
These are rings we're talking about, 3 different instances of recycling rings.
Correct.
Yeah.
That to me is indicative of the challenge we're facing, and we're very concerned. We've only identified the tip of the iceberg in terms of these cases. We need to continue to invest in protecting these children, but better yet, a change in the law would prevent this cycle from happening in the first place.
You testified earlier about renting children. I think, was it $89 a child? Is that the figure that you gave? Did I write that down correctly?
So one of the individuals that was subject to DNA testing, one of those 109, was a 51-year-old. He said, sorry, it's not my child. It was a 6-month-old child that he stated he paid about $80, the equivalent of $80 US, to rent from the mother.
Who's making the money here? I mean, who's making money on recycling children and renting children?
Human smugglers, human smuggling organizations.
And what's the role of the cartels in all of this at the border?
They advertise it, they promote it. It's ubiquitous in Central America. Advertisements on radio, advertisements on social media, the advertisement the chairman held up at the start of the meeting. This is a very well-known fact.
So it just strikes me, I mean, we've heard it said that crossing the southern border is an act of love, but for the cartels, it is an opportunity for exploitation of children. It is an opportunity to cash in. It is about profit. It is about money. It's about their criminal enterprise. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
And you said just a little bit ago that it was last June that you said we have a humanitarian crisis at the border. Is that right?
That's right.
And you've requested additional funding. You've requested humanitarian assistance. You've requested more judges. And this Congress has refused to act, refused to act, refused to act. Is that correct?
Yes.
I don't think failure to act is really quite right. I think that's way too generous. It is refusal to act, because Congress could act. They could act if they wanted to, but they don't want to. That's the bottom line. And so we're dealing with children. I'm the father of 2 little boys. The idea that you would have children recycled, purchased, used for profit by these cartels and by these smuggling rings, and that this Congress would sit by and say, we're just not going to do anything, there really is no crisis, there's nothing we can agree on, is absolutely unbelievable to me. I mean, it is the worst failure of leadership that I can think of. I mean, it's just absolutely stunning. Let me ask you about one of the proposals that the chairman has made, the refugee processing centers in Mexico and Central America. How much of a difference would that make for Border Patrol and DHS if migrants from the Northern Triangle were able to apply for refugee status in their home country?
Yeah, part of the problem here is that we do have a percentage of people that have valid refugee or asylum type cases that deserve protections. And right now they're caught within that huge flow of others that are just economic migrants who are exploiting the loopholes. If we had a refugee processing center in country, we'd be able to do that in a safe place and get a result for those people that need protections, fly them safely to a destination country. Could be the United States, could be another country that would offer protections, and it would be a much better process without smugglers involved, without profits for criminals.
It would help remove, right, those incentives that the cartels, the smuggling rings have in order to exploit children and to use them for profit. Is that fair to say?
Right, while still reaching those that need protections.
Yeah, because what we have we do have families that are desperately seeking asylum asylum. We do have some that are going to have a valid refugee or asylum claims, and we have others who just who want to escape the conditions of their home country, understandably. And then you've got these cartels and smuggling rings who are preying upon that, who are finding ways to violate the law and turning all of that into their own profit. Is that right?
Exactly right.
Just on the details of this proposal, do you have a view on whether such refugee processing centers should be run by DHS or by the State Department, or how that ought to work?
Yeah, I mean, the State Department and the UNHCR are the organizations that manage refugee processing foreign.
And do you think that that's a good, or you'd be happy with that arrangement?
Yeah, DHS has a role with Citizenship and Immigration Services. It's a partnership. I mean, it should be treated like the situation it is, like an international refugee challenge.